B'siyata d'shmaya, we're going to learn sukkah Daf Lamed Beis. We're going to start 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Lamed Aleph, Omid Beis. Says the Gemara, Niktam Roshai. And this takes us back to the Mishnah on Daf Chavtes Omid Beis, discussing the halachas of lulav. One of the halachas are that if Niktam Roshai, if the head of the lulav is cut off, then it's possible. And Rashi says in the Mishnah that it's not hodor, it's not beautiful, and therefore it's possible. Says the Gemara, Omer of Huna, Lo yishanu elo niktam. We only learnt in the Mishnah that if the head of the lulav is chopped off, is cut off, then it's possible. Aval nistak, if the heads of the leaves are split, but they are not cut off, then kosher, it's kosher. Asks the Gemara of a nistak kosher? Can you really assume that, and it's apparent in the Mishnah from the fact that the Mishnah only mentions niktam and not nistak, that if the leaves at the top of the lulav, or more accurately, if the tops of the leaves are split, that it's kosher? This seems to contradict a brisa. Vatani, we learned in a brisa, lulav kofuf. If you have a lulav that the top of the lulav is bent over like a hunchback, and it's bent down, the point is bending downwards, or the kivates, or if it's a lulav which has thorny stems on them protruding from it, or soduk, or if they are split. Here it explicitly mentions a lulav which the leaves are split, or okum doime lemagal, or if the whole lulav, the whole spine of the lulav is curved like a sickle, posel, then it's posel. Chorus, if the branches if the leaves have opened up and they've become hardened, and now the leaves are just like branches coming out of the spine of the lulav, posel, then it's posel. Doime lechorus, however, if they've just started hardening, the leaves have opened up, that means they've come away from being attached to the spine, and they've come away a little bit, they've started hardening, but they're not solid yet, that's only doime lechorus, it's similar to chorus, and therefore kosher, the lulav is still kosher. But what do we see from this brisa? That soduk, if it's split, it's posel. And before we said in the Gemara, Rav Huna says that from the Mishnah it seems that nistak is kosher. Answers the Gemara, Omer of Papa says, the ovid kehemnuk. If it's just the leaves, the top of the leaves are split, that's okay. But if it's split to the point that it's kehemnuk, it looks like a 2-thronged fork, where you can see that the top of the lulav is actually going in 2 different directions, like one of these forks. In that case, we say that nistak is posel. Continues the Gemara, we saw in the brisa, okum doime lemagol, if a lulav is curved, similar to a sickle, in that case, the lulav is posel. Omar Rava says, loy omron, when did we say it's posel? Elo lefonov. And Rashi seems to understand it means la'achirov, which means when it is bent towards the shedra. When it's bent towards the shedra, that means the shedra, the spine, is the part of the lulav which is completely flat, and that's normally the part which is facing the person. That's normally how people hold the lulav. So when it's bent backwards, then it's posel. Aval acharov, and Rashi seems to learn here, it means lefonov, but when it's facing away from the back of the spine, in that case, briasahu, that is a very normal way of a lulav to be bent a little bit, and in that case it's going to be kosher. Omer of Nachman says litzadim, that if the lulav is bent to the sides, kelefonov domi, that it's similar to lefonov, that if it's facing away from him, away from the spine, and according to Harashi said that's kosher. V'omri lo keleachrav domi, and others say it's like facing backwards, and the way we explained according to Rashi, it would seem that is going to be posel. Continues the Gemara, Omar Rava, Hai Lulva, this lulav, the solik bechad hutza, that all its leaves are on one side of the spine, and on the other side of the spine there are no leaves, bal mumhu, it's a blemished lulav, uposel, and it's possible. And we've explained this Gemara as is apparent in Rashi. There's many other different explanations in the Rishonim when it comes to halacha and Shulchan Aruch, and you actually have to go and choose the Arba Minim. Then please do not rely on the shiurim that you're hearing here, Gemara with Rashi. You have to learn that with the Poskim and ask a Rav and make sure that you have a kosher set of Arba Minim. Continues the Gemara, Nifritzu Alov. This takes us again back to the Mishnah on Chof Tes Amud Beis. The Mishnah says, Nifritzu Alov, if the leaves of the lulav have torn off the spine of the lulav, posel, then it's posel. Says the Gemara, Omer of Papa, Nifritzu, when the leaves have been pulled off, Da'ovid Ki Chufya, because then when you just bunch together all the leaves, and you tie them together, but the leaves themselves are not attached to the spine anymore, then it's just like a chufya, it's just like a broom, and a broom that you sweep the house with, which they used to make from lulav leaves, and it's possible. Nifradu, when it says in the Mishnah, again on Chof Tes Amud Beis, that Nifradu Alov, if the leaves have just separated, they've just spread out a little bit, in that case it's kosher. Just Rabbi Yehuda says, Ya'agdenu milamalo, you should tie the tops of the leaves to the spine. Says the Gemara, Nifradu, the ifrudi, and that is when they are spread out, when the leaves have just spread out away from the spine, then it's kosher, and Rabbi Yehuda says you should tie them to the spine. Boyer of Papa. Rav Papa asked the following question: Nechleka hatiyemus. If the two middle leaves have got split, that means the two middle leaves which mark the top of the spine, that the end of the spine finishes with these leaves, and now the leaves have split right down till the spine, till the shedra, and the shedra itself has got split, has got torn apart, until the next leaves underneath it, underneath the top leaves. That's called Nechleka Tiyemus according to Rashi. Tiyemus means a twin, it means a double. The leaves at the top, they got right split down and tore the shedra till the next leaves. Mahu, what's the halacha? Is this kosher? Is it not kosher? Says the Gemara Toshema, Rabbi Yochanan Omar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Nitla Tiyemus, if the middle leaves have been totally removed and detached from the lulav, posel, it's posel. My love, can we not assume hu adin nechleka, the same applies if it's completely split? Says the Gemara, no. Nitlo shani, when the leaves have been totally taken away, that's different to hachosarle, because now it's missing. If it's missing, then it's an incomplete lulav, it's posel. However, if it's just split, then in that case, it's not necessarily posel. Ikeda Omra, a different version, Omra Rabbi Yochanan, Omra Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Nechleka Atiyemus, that if it's split to this extent, Nase Kamisha Nitlo Atiyemus, it's as good as if the middle leaves have been removed, uposel, and it's also posel. So we have two different versions, and obviously one is the opposite of the other. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says that the leaves that have spread out a little bit, tie them to the spine. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Meshum Reb Tarfon, Kof Kapois Tamorim, that when the Pasuk calls a lulav Kapois Tamorim, which is the branches of a palm tree, the word Kapois can mean kofus, which means to tie. Im hoyo pirud yich kafsenu. If they have spread out, tie them together. Asks the Gemara, Eima charusa. Maybe it's the part of the palm which is called charusa, which is these big leaves that maybe once upon a time they were lulavim, but now all the leaves off these branches have become very, very stiff, and now it's just a very big branch with leaves coming off them that have been hardened and are very wood-like. Says the Gemara, no. Ba'ina kofus veleka. A lulav has to be something that you can tie to the spine. Over here, these branches that are ready for a few years, the leaves have very much spread out and hardened. It's impossible to tie them to the center. It cannot be called kapois tamorim. Asks the Gemara of Eima ufta. Maybe it's the part of the tree which is very, very solid. It's after the trunk of the tree when these lulavim, these branches get cut down, and there's just these stumps that are sticking out of the main trunk of the tree, where they don't have anything coming off them, no branches at all. Maybe that's what we call kapois tamorim. Says the Gemara, No, it can't be. From the fact that it says kapois tomorim, that the leaves have to be tied together to the spine, it must be mechral de ikapirud. It must be that they have leaves that could potentially spread out, and just kapois tomorim, the lulav should be that they're not spread out. V'hai kofus v'oimeti. But these stubs that are sticking out of the trunk, they are just fixed. They don't have any leaves that could come out of them, that could spread out, and that cannot mean kapois tomorim. Asks the Gemara, Ve'ema kufra. Maybe that what this lulav, this kapois tomorim, is actually talking about the branches that are coming out of the date palms that are not really so stiff. It's not like we said before, the charusa, which is very, very stiff and is impossible to tie them. No, it's talking about the branches that have spread out, but they're not hard and solid like wood, and you could still push them together towards the spine of the lulav. Maybe that's considered a kosher lulav. These lulavim typically, which the leaves are already spread out and hardened, typically they have thorns on them, and they scratch a person's fingers and the hands when you're handling the lulav. And the Torah is derachel darchei noyam. The ways of Torah are pleasant. All the pathways are peace, or shalom, it says in the pasuk. And therefore, it's not probable that the Torah is telling you to take a type of lulav that would have these, which are pointy and would have these thorns and something that's going to scratch a person's fingers. Omali Rava Tosfa Ravina. Rava Tosfa said to Ravina, Ve'ema tarti kapei de tamri. Kafus could mean two kaf. What is a kaf? A cluster. Maybe what lulav means is to take two clusters that from a date palm. We know that these branches that come out of the date palm, and on them are hanging a whole cluster of dates. Maybe take two clusters like that, and that's a lulav. That's kapois tomorim. That it's not lulav, but that's what the Torah means with kapois tomorim, not the lulav that we know. Answers the Gemara, kapasksiv. Even though kapois is read in plural term, but the way it's written is kapas without the vav. It's just a single, and therefore we take one lulav. It's a single thing, not two clusters. Says the Gemara, okay, maybe take one cluster. Maybe kapas tomorim is kapas tomorim, take one cluster of dates, and that will be what the Torah meant to take for sukkahs. Says the Gemara, that's not called kapas tomorim, that's called lahu kaf correlates. A cluster is just called a kaf. If it says kapais, it cannot mean a cluster. It must be that when it says kapois tomorim, it means it's a part of the palm tree which is kofus, which is tied together, that the branches, the leaves, are comfortably attached to the spine, and the only thing that fits the bill is what we know as our lulav, that has lots of leaves that potentially could spread out, but in an ideal situation, they are tied, they are attached and adjacent to the spine, and that's our lulav. Continues the Gemara. Tzine hara barzel kshera. Again, we saw in the Mishnah that these palms that are called tzine, the palm trees of har barzel, which is literally translated as a mountain of iron, it's kosher. And typically, these tzine hara barzel, the leaves are relatively short. Says the Gemara, Omar Abaye, Lo Yishonu, when do we say that these palm, the lulavim of Tzine Hara Barzel are kosher, is only Elo Sharoishe Shel Zeh, Magia Letzad Ikre Shel Zeh. It's true that with the lulavim we know each leaf is very long and covers most of the leaf underneath it. And these Tzine Hara Barzel, the leaves are very short. But Abaye says it must be that the top of one leaf at least reaches the point of the start, the root of the leaf above it. And that way at least the sides of the spine are totally covered. However, if there's so few leaves and the leaves are so short that they do not cover the sides of the spine of the lulav, if the top of one leaf does not reach the start of the next leaf, posel, then these tzine hara barzel will be posel to be used for arba minim. Tani nami achi, we also saw this in a brayso, tzine hara barzel psula. That even though the Mishnah says Tzine Hara Barzel kosher, the Brisa says Tzine Hara Barzel is possible. Asks the Gemara of Anantnan, did we not learn in the Mishnah Ksheira it's kosher? Elo Shma Mino, it must be proof Kabaya Shma Mino. There's two different types of Tzine Hara Barzel. There's Tzine Hara Barzel whose leaves are very, very short, that the top of one leaf does not reach the next leaf, then it's possible. But if they do reach each other, then it's kosher. Ve'ika and others say the same thing, but they word the discussion a bit differently. Ika deromi le mirma. They started off with asking the contradiction that none in the Mishnah it says Tzine Hara Barzel kosher. V'altanya, but in the Brisa it says psula. Omar Abaya, Abaya said. That means Abaya wasn't coming to explain the Mishnah per se. He was coming to explain how to get out of the contradiction. When it says in the Mishnah Tzine Hara Barzel it's kosher, it means when the leaves are long enough that the top of one leaf reaches the base of the next leaf, the leaf beyond it. And but if that doesn't happen, that's when the Brisa says that it's possible. Continues the Gemara. Omer of Rabbi Meir and Omer of Yeshua ben Levi was said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, v'Omer la Toni Rabbi bar Meri mishum Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Others say it was said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. There's shtei tamres, there are two date palms, there are two palm trees, yesh, they are found begay Ben Hinnom, in the place called Gei Ben Hinnom, which is close to Yerushalayim. V'oile oshon mibeneim, and smoke raises up from between the two. V'zeu sheshoninu Tzine Hara Barzel ksheres, and that is what we're talking about. These palm trees that are there are called Tzine Hara Barzel, and they're kosher. V'zui pischo shel Gehenim, and that's one of the entrances to Gehenim. Continues the Gemara. And this is the final statement in the Mishnah on Daf Chavtes Amud Beis. Lulav sheyesh bo shloisha tvachim, a lulav that has 3 tvachim. And then the Mishnah adds in 2 words, kedei lenanea, or kedei lenanea boy, with which one can shake the lulav and move it in all 6 directions. Kosher, then it's kosher. Says the Gemara, lulav sheyesh bo shloisha tvachim, Omer Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Shiur hadas va'arava shloisha. The hadasim and aravas have to be a minimum of 3 tvachim. V'lulav, but a lulav has to be arba, 4 tvachim. Kedei sheyehei lulav, in order that the leaves of the lulav, that means that including the leaves, that means there's got to be 3 tvachim from the base of the lulav, 3 tvachim next to which the hadasim and the aravas are going to stand. And then a tefach above, from 3 tvachim up until the top of the top leaves, an extra tefach. Sheyehei lulav yoytza min hadas, that the leaves of the lulav should protrude beyond the hadasim, tefach, an extra tefach, and that's what is going to be used, so to speak, to shake the lulav with. Rav Paruch Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan argues with Shmuel. Shmuel seemed to say that as long as you have a tefach, including the tops of the leaves, on top of the hadasim and aravas, it's kosher. Rabbi Yochanan says no. I need the spine to be 4 tvachim. The leaves that protrude beyond the spine, that's extra. But the minimum size of the lulav has to be 4 tvachim, just the spine. Says the Gemara, Tanan, did we not learn in the Mishnah, Lulav sheyesh by gimel tvachim kedei lenanea by kosher? You just said now that everybody agrees you need 4 tvachim for the lulav. There's a machlekes where the 4 tvachim of spine or 4 tvachim including the leaves, but you need 4 tvachim. The Mishnah seems to say if you just have a basic reading of the Mishnah, it's 3 tvachim. It doesn't say it's 4 tvachim. Answers the Gemara Ema, the way you have to read the Mishnah is ukedei lenanea boy kosher, which means that a lulav that has 3 sheyesh bo shloisha tvachim, not 3 tvachim kedei lenanea in order to be able to shake the lulav. No, 3 tvachim plus the ability to be able to shake. How much is that? An extra tefach. So when it says in the Mishnah lenanea boy, it's referring to an extra tefach of the lulav. Only then it's kosher. Marka de Islay or Marka de Islay. Shmuel will hold it's good enough if that extra tefach is from the leaves, and Rabbi Yochanan will say that the extra tefach has to be from the spine. Continues the Gemara Toshima. Shiur hadas v'arava. We just learned we've learned that the size of the hadas and the arava is shloisha, is 3 tvachim. V'lulav arba, and the lulav is 4 tvachim. My love, behadi alim. when the Brisa just says lulav is 4 tvachim, it doesn't say 4 tvachim of the spine. It seems the whole lulav from the base of the lulav to the top of the leaves 4 tvachim, and that's like Shmuel, not like Rabbi Yochanan. And we don't want to have Brisa against Rabbi Yochanan. Answers the Gemara, loy levad me'alim. It could well be the Brisa is talking about the 4 tvachim, besides for the leaves protruding beyond or sticking up above the spine. The spine itself, that's what the Brisa is talking about. It needs to be 4 tvachim. Continues the Gemara. Gufa, which we learnt, Shiur hadas v'arova, the size, the length of hadasim and arovas, shleisha is 3 tvachim. V'lulav arba, the lulav is 4 tvachim. Reb Tarfon says, seems to argue and says, Ba'amo bas chamisha tvachim. You want to know how long the minimum size of hadasim and arovas are? It's 5 tvach. It's an amma. How much is an amma? 5 tvachim. We'll soon see there's 2 different types. There's 2 different ways of measuring an amma. There's an amma which is 5 tvachim. There's an amma which is 6 tvachim. And we're soon going to see about that. But here Reb Tarfon seems to be saying that hadasim and arovas have to be a whole amma of 5 tvachim. Omar Rava said about Reb Tarfon, Sharolei Mori, Hashem should forgive him for causing us such trouble, Reb Tarfon. Hashta ovo is shloisha, loy mashkechinon. As it is, to find hadasim which are ovois, we'll learn later what this means in the next daf, in the next Mishnah. But hadasim have to be ovois. They have to be 3 leaves coming out on the same level. It's challenging enough to find 3 tvachim of hadasim which are ovois, which look like the way they should. And loy mashkechinon, it's hard to find. Bas chamisha miboya, you want us to find 5 tvachim of hadasim? That's a huge challenge. And Hashem should forgive Reb Tarfon for saying that. Ki also Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Omar, he explained Reb Tarfon as follows. Reb Tarfon didn't mean that your hadasim and arovas have to be 5 tvachim. No, everybody agrees that the hadasim and arovas have to be 3 tvachim. The question is, what type of tefach? And it goes as follows. We're going to soon see, we have Rav Dimi, and later on we're going to have Rovin. And they're both discussing what is called an average amma, which means an amma is a certain size. The question is, this particular size of amma, do we split it into 5 tvachim, or do we split that amma into 6 tvachim? Obviously, if you split it into 6 tvachim, every tefach is smaller than if you split it into 5 tvachim. So the question is, what's called an average tefach, an average way of splitting up an amma, and what is do we say that the 6 tvachim, a 1/6 of an amma is an average tefach, and a 1/5 of an amma is called a large tefach? Or do we say no, a 1/5 of an amma is a regular tefach, and a 1/6 of an amma is a smaller tefach? That's going to be a discussion now between Rav Dimi and Rovin. So what does Rav Dimi say? Rav Dimi says that an average tefach is a 1/6 of an amma. Rav Dimi says that what Rav Tarfon was trying to tell us was like this. Rav Dimi Omar, Amma bas 6 tvachim, take an amma, which is 6 tvachim, which contains 6 tvachim, asay oisa bas chamisha, and turn the amma of 6 tvachim into 5 tvachim, which means that every tefach is now 1.2 size. That means an extra 1/5 of the original tefach. And say mehem shloisha, and 3 of those larger tfachim, that's the tfachim that you need for the hadas. The hashar, and the 4th tefach that you need for lulav is lulav. That means an extra large tefach, an extra 1.2 of the original average size tfachim, that will be for the lulav, for the na'anuim. So kama havaluhu. So the 3 tfachim of Reb Tarfon, how much would that be relative to? That means the Tanakam hold, they said, Shiur hadas v'arova shleisha, 3 tvachim. What does that mean? 3 average tvachim, which is 3 times a 1/6 of an amma, 3 times a 1/6 of an amma. But what did Reb Tarfon say? What Reb Tarfon now said was, no, don't take 3, you should take 3.8. 3.6, sorry. That lulav and hadasim is now 3.6 of those smaller tfachim, because 3 tvachim of the larger tvachim, every tefach is an extra 0.2, an extra fifth. So you have 3 tvachim is 3.6 tvachim of the Tanakama. So Tanakama say 3 tvachim, and Rav Tarfon says add on an extra 60% of a tefach. Kama havalu, how much does that come to? Tlosa, 3 tvachim of the original average tvachim, which is the smaller tvachim, v'tilsa chumsha, and 3/5, which is 0.6, and that's how much Rav Tarfon says, that's how much the hadassim and the haravos have to be. So asks the Gemara, if that's what Rav Tarfon said, that the size of the hadassim have to be 3.6 tvachim of the average size tvachim, kasha de Shmuel, we seem to have a contradiction in Shmuel. Hacha Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel, first Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Shiur hadas v'arav shloisha. The size of the hadassim and haravos is 3 tvachim. We imagine that means 3 average tvachim. 3 tvachim, which each one is a sixth of an amma. V'hasam Amar Rav Huna Shmuel, but Rav Huna said in the name of Shmuel, halacha Reb Tarfon, halacha is like Reb Tarfon, that you take 3 of the larger tvachim, so it's 3.6 of those average tvachim. A contradiction in Shmuel. Says the Gemara, loydok. So Shmuel wasn't so accurate. Shmuel says 3 tvachim, but really he meant 3.6 of the average tvachim. Says the Gemara, loydok. When can you say that it was not exact? He didn't say exactly the right measure. L'chumra. That's if you rounded it up. L'kulam mi'omrin on loydok. But can you round it down? People might take you seriously and say 3 tvachim means 3 tvachim of the average tvachim. Well, really, you say halacha is like Reb Tarfon, you need 3 of the larger tvachim. People are going to be misled. So that's a question against how Rav Dimi understood this. So ki also Ravin, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Rava explained as follows. Omar, he says it the other way around. He says the average tvachim, the Tanakama, when they say 3 tvachim, they mean 3 tvachim of what we now call the larger size tvachim, the 5th of an amma. Amma bas chamisha tvachim. An regular amma is, an average amma is the amma of 5 tvachim. And 3 of those tvachim is, that means that the 5 tvachim amma is smaller than a 6 tvachim amma. But beforehand we were talking about a 6 tvachim amma, that's the regular average amma. And we split that into 5, as we said before. And now we say no. The regular amma is an amma of 5 tvachim. And an average tefach is a 5th of that amma. And what Rav Tarfon was saying is, asay oisa shisha. Take this amma of 5 tvachim and split it into 6. And now every tefach is less. It's 0.83 of the average tvachim. Because now you've taken what was a 5th of an amma and you've made it a 6th of an amma. It's 0.83 of the original tefach. And that's what Rav Tarfon says, that you don't need 3 tvachim, which is the 3 of the average tvachim. No, it's enough to have 3 tvachim of the smaller tvachim, which is a 6th of, which is 3 times a 6th of the amma, which is comprised of 5 tvachim. Asei so shisha. Say mehem, shloisha lehadas, 3 of those smaller tvachim, 3 times 0.83 of the average tvachim is for the hadassim. Vashar, and an extra tefach of the smaller tvachim, lulav will be for the extra part of the lulav for nanua. So kama havalu. So how much is it? We're talking about that this is an amma of 5 tvachim, and Rav Tarfon says split this into 6 and take 3 of them. Well, if you take 3 tvachim out of 6, it's exactly half. So, relative to the amma of 5 tvachim, you really only have to take 2.5 tvachim. But if you make the 5 tvachim into 6 tvachim, then you're taking 3 tvachim. So what's the average size? So the real tefach, the average size tefach is 2.5 tvachim. The average size. When the Tanakama say 3 tvachim, they mean 3 tvachim of the 5 tvachim, 3 tvachim of the larger tvachim. Rav Tarfon says no, because 3 tvachim of the larger tvachim is more than half an amma, it's 3/5 of an amma. Rav Tarfon says no, split it into 6 and take 3, which means you only need half an amma, which is only 2.5 of the larger tvachim. So Rav Tarfon here is being makel, not being machmir. Asay mehem shisha. Tzei mehem shloisha lehadas v'shar lulav kama havalu treu palga. So the 3 tfachim of Reb Tarfon is really only 2.5 of the regular tfachim. And then we can understand that, well, let's see the Gemara inside. Soif, kasha de Shmuel ad Shmuel, the contradiction in Shmuel comes back. In one place Shmuel says you need 3 tvachim for hadassim. In the second place he says like Reb Tarfon, which is only 2.5 of those regular tvachim. Here the Gemara says lo yidog. He wasn't so precise. V'hainu l'chumra lo yidog. Of here's l'chumra. Because really you only need 2.5 tvachim, says Reb Tarfon. He says halacha Reb Tarfon. Shmuel said 3 tvachim. So maximum is you've rounded it up. Maximum is you've taken half, you've taken a little bit more. You've taken 3/5 of an amma instead of half an amma. It's okay. So you were machmer a little bit. The Omer of Shmuel, halacha Reb Tarfon. Because Shmuel said that the halacha is like Reb Tarfon, and 2.5 tvachim of the regular tvachim would have been enough. It's half an amma. He rounded it up and said 3 tvachim. Worst comes to worst, somebody will take 3 of the 5 tvachim amas. Of those tvachim, he'll take a little bit more, and he will have been machmir. And the Mir Hashem in the next shiur, we're going to learn the next Mishnah.